Welcome to the second episode of Macondo interviews. Today we are joined by Neal Bryan and Chad Thurman, who are the founders of Workshed Animation. Together, they have created incredible works of stop-motion animation, including the short film Toe, which has made quite a bang in horror festivals. And I can't really begin to imagine the amount of work put into this 7-minute short film, guys. I love all the tiny details, the Tim Burton like atmosphere. The cinematography caught me since the first shots. Like this one shot where we see the shadow of Boy, it's simply amazing with the fog and everything. It's amazing. The editing, the score, the sound design, it kept me really terrified the whole time. And that last scene was a great payoff to the first shot to the title. It was really great, guys. I would really like to watch a feature film about this or a longer version because I need more of the really, guys. It was incredible. I loved it.
Thank you very much.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, Rodrigo kind of said the same thing I was thinking. Like, it's seeing it for the first time, you feel anxious. All the designs of the creatures and the whole set is incredible. And just it leaves you thinking. I think stop motion animation in general, compared to other animation forms and filmmaking forms, it leaves you thinking, how the hell did these guys do it? Like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
How much effort does it go into it? So yeah, I think this interview we're both very excited to find out all these secrets that you guys
Yeah,
have.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, the structure is gonna be, we're gonna start off kind of asking you guys about the story of Workshed Animations, and then we're gonna go into more details about Toe in particular.
Okay.
So yeah, the first question for you guys is, it's not a question actually. We would like you to walk us through the inception of Workshed Animations.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess so. Neal and I have been filming for a really long time together. Primarily, doing a lot of comedy shorts that we would put online, like Facebook and YouTube, things like that. A lot of them that we didn't really have quite an end game for. But I would say that Workshed Animation really started with Toe, and that kind of started when we decided that we really wanted to make something a little bit bigger than like our average sketches that we would just throw out into the ether. And while we were brainstorming ideas to do a short film, we were kind of browsing through scary storytelling in the dark, and we called The Big Toe. And immediately we were kind of hooked by that story. And then when sort of brainstorming some ideas of how we can tell that story, what medium to do it in, stop motion was just kind of a no-brainer for us. Just the world, the universe of scary stories to tell in the dark with Stephen Gamel's his illustrations were so like haunting and just kind of grisly.
Are you all familiar with that book?
Yeah, in the movie also.
The
movie.
movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, more than the book. But yeah, it's I don't know the short story, but I saw it in the movie and I immediately thought about it and was like, these guys, I think they based it on this.
Yeah, definitely. So the illustrations are real black and white and kind of gothic looking. So we just thought that would be a very appropriate way to tell that story, just through stop motion. And once we started, building the sets and shooting some scenes here and there, posting it on social media, we really just had a lot of fun, and people really responded well to a lot of the behind the scenes footage and just elements that we were sharing. So that was like motivating in and of itself, but just the whole process of doing the stop motion was so much fun and so rewarding when it was all said and done, that we just decided that why not make this legit and just make sort of a production company out of it, and sort of build off the momentum of Toe and keep doing bigger and hopefully better things down the road. So really the inception of Workshed really started with Toe.
That's awesome. I love how you guys said it. You said it yourself, how you do a lot of behind the scenes with all your social media accounts, and the posts are also really funny. I love the one where you operate on the on the puppet of the boy.
Oh
That's
yeah.
hilarious, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stemmed from our comedy background. We
Right.
actually did have like a serious issue with the puppet at that time, and so we were talking to our puppet fabricator out in LA to try to figure out how we could fix this big like bubble on his face. And she gave us the rundown. That whole night we spent the entire night making that comedy sketch, and we never actually even did the surgery. She called us the next morning and was like, "So how'd it go? Did you do it?" And it's like, "No, we spent the whole night making this goofy video." So,
Right, but you're gonna love it. It's really funny. Yeah.
we get distracted easily.
But I think that sort of gives the social media page and things like that a
Exactly.
little charm, is that we sort of show a little bit about ourselves and our
Right,
personalities.
and
So
it gets you a lot of
you know,
traction and
but-
viewers. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Things like that. Just have fun with it, and that just that translates well to the final product, in my opinion.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and who are your inspirations, or who were your inspirations for this short? Jim Henson, Ray Harryhausen, or Rich Baker, or any other horror directors?
Yeah, we so me and Chad are both big fans of the horror genre. We love like older movies that kind of predate CG. A lot of films that use practical effects and things like that. We're really into Alien, Predator, Jaws. A lot of stop motion fit into that as well. Ray Harryhausen's obviously a big influence. Willis O'Brien, who's kind of one of the pioneers who did King Kong, the original one. We got real absorbed into his work and what all went into that. Tom Savini, Rick Baker, Rob Bottin, a lot of horror special effects guys who did, movies like The Thing, and those obviously played a big inspiration. So we've always kind of known we wanted to do practical effects, whether it was, even if it was a live action short. We love going out into the woods with a fog machine and create some contraption that can, spray, like Evil Dead. The series is a big influence on us. So we love the idea of just going out in the woods and kind of shooting this kind of slapstick, blood gore fest kind of thing. So that's always been something we've really admired, and stop motion is perfect because it utilizes a lot of that as well, because you have to basically build everything by scratch and kind of execute it that way. So it scratched that itch for us.
Yeah, and I think also just to build off of that, in terms of toe, David Lynch's Eraserhead was a really big influence for the film's sort of like aesthetic and the atmosphere that we wanted to build. So yeah, David Lynch is a big inspiration. Neal mentioned it earlier. Sam Raimi from the Evil Dead franchise was really big as well. So yeah, we're huge fans of sort of the campy old horror movies, and just anything with sort of practical effects really appeals to us. So yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to learn from the practical effects than from old movies? They did it all before without any help of computer stuff or CGI, and that's amazing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you would have, and when you're building your sets for stop motion, you really have all the time in the world on your hands. So you'd be crafting a lot of set pieces and things like that, and you just pop on Eraserhead, or even just documentaries about the old King Kong films and things like that. And that sparks a lot of inspiration from there as well. So yeah, it's just a really cool process from start to finish.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's the next question would be, this is gonna be hard for you guys maybe, but what is the most challenging aspect of stop motion animation?
There's a lot of challenging things, as you all probably can pick up on. I think for me, it's obviously it's a very time-consuming process. Part of the nice things about stop motion is we both work full-time jobs, and when we were kind of coming up with the short for Toe, we were like, this is great because we can basically shoot this movie on our own time. Like when we get off work, we can focus on it. We don't have to worry about like having actors and shoot dates and things like that. The problem is, contrary to that, that means you have to build everything. You have to do everything yourself, pretty much. So, working a full day doing photographer, I'm a photographer in a studio full time. It is kind of hard to come home and then put in like 4 or 5 hours of shooting, basically stop motion. So it can just be, draining, a lot of work. But I would say for me, it's being able to find the time to put in those long hours that are needed to pull off stop motion. It's not, a lot of people, I think there's a misconception that you have to be very patient and it's like, could be boring. It's very, it requires a lot of focus when you're doing it. So hours will go by and you don't even notice because you're so fixated on, the small things that go into the production. So it's very stimulating, but by the end of it, you've put in so much focus and effort that you literally are just drained of energy by the time you finish like shooting a 3-second scene, So I don't know. What do you think? What's the hardest for you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. It's just keeping that perspective and, thinking about the bigger picture as you're filming along, because you could spend 8 to 9 hours animating, and really when it's all said and done, you only have about 3 or 4 seconds of footage to work with. And that can be very demoralizing, but you go to bed, you wake up the next day, you put in more time, and then you've got 8 seconds, and you just build off of that. But as demoralizing as it is, just the more you keep building, the more of a reality it slowly becomes, and then it's just that much more rewarding when you have a final product. But yeah, while you're kind of in the trenches doing all of that, it can be pretty daunting. But yes, so I'd say that's the biggest thing. Technical standpoint of doing the nitty-gritty animating, walk cycles have always been pretty difficult for us, and that's when you have the puppet kind of walking along, and especially if you do a wide shot where you want to see his feet in action, you really want to make sure that those foot movements are looking natural and they kind of have a fluid rhythm. Otherwise, it's just really herky-jerky, and it's just sort of choppy animation. One thing with Toe is that was our first true stop motion project, and we just kind of learned as we went along, but we did shoot the film sequentially. So from the beginning to the end, we just shot it all the way through, which is a huge mistake because we started it with, as you know, him walking up a hill, him walking through the forest and things like that. So we really got our feet wet with like the hardest animation cycles for us. So it's kind of an interesting viewing experience. If you watch Toe, it's a little crude at the beginning, but just the animation becomes much more fluid towards the end. So from that perspective, it is kind of an interesting viewing experience.
Yeah. What we should have done is taken a lot of time to learn how to actually animate like the fundamentals. We kind of just like let's do stop motion. Let's learn basically how you pull off these shots, and then we just jumped in and started shooting. So I think we could have benefited. By the time we finished Toe, I felt like we had a much better grasp of some of the mechanics of how to just make movement look natural and things like that. And sometimes while we were shooting, it was frustrating because we're just you'll play back the animation, you're like, that just doesn't look right. It looks too robotic or something. And so, we'd have to experiment and just figure out ways to just create natural movement. So that was challenging, but rewarding. Nothing's better than when you finish a shot and it looks really good and it's almost has a magic to it that you were able to achieve that. So, yeah.
And talking about this, what did you come up first with the sets, with the figures, well, obviously with the story, but what was the inception of Toe? How did you start?
Yeah,
what was the starting point?
What, we can kind of show you some visual aids we got here.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the things we just like, for instance, here's the house from Toe.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so
Nice.
This is all popsicle sticks. We have foam core inside that basically, it's falling apart. To create the structure of it. But Chad spent a lot of time breaking all these popsicle sticks, and then we hand painted them. He actually took, let's see, how many of these did you end up using?
Oh, I don't know, probably like 10 to 12.
different. No, I'm talking about all the pieces. There's like hundreds. You can see the detail on here. Yeah, basically took pipe cones and just broke them off, and then just glued all of these to the roof. So we kind of just experimented. We just kind of started building the foundation, just kind of kept adding to it. So really a lot of with stop motion and kind of the way we've worked is we don't even have experience building sets or miniatures or anything. We just kind of like took a stab at it, and we're willing to, if we make something that looks terrible, we'll start over or try something new. But we thought that this started looking cool, and then luckily we got in contact with this girl who does special effects work out in LA, and we got introduced to her. She had no experience doing puppet fabrication, but she had worked on a lot of independent films doing like makeup and prosthetics and things. So she loved the idea of helping out with stop motion, and so we kind of gave her a rough idea of what these characters should look like, and she kind of did her own take on it. You can see, so here's the boy's head here.
Yeah,
but yeah, so
cool to meet them in person.
I know, right? You can see they're dressed up in tuxedos because we took them to a film festival. Here's the boy's. It's kind of disturbing that his head is not attached, but
a little too much fun at the festival.
But yeah, her name's Demi K Creations is her website, and she now works for K&B Effects. They do The Walking Dead and other really popular shows.
Nice.
And so, yeah, she helped us with this. I'm not too familiar with this is a silicone puppet, so it feels kind of like rubber and skin.
Right.
But yeah, so when we got these from her, we were like, oh my gosh, these are really good. Now we got to make sure the stop motion looks good.
Yeah, that's kind of a turning point. That was a turning point for the project. Let's get these high quality puppets, and then that kind of lit a fire under our feet and made us realize that we have to make the entire world
this is real, right?
Yeah, exactly. It made everything feel that much more legitimate and things like that. So it was a total game changer.
Yeah, I can see that all the puppets and the set pieces are colored. Did you decide to do it black and white after you shot it?
We knew we wanted to do it in black and white. The illustrations from the book are all in black and white, and we're big fans of like old black and white movies, like Universal monster movies, and I've always really liked that aesthetic to create that kind of dark gothic look. So we knew we wanted it to be black and white. The reason we did it in color is because even with black and white, it still picks up a lot of different grayscale tones. So you still want things to kind of represent what they would look like in real life. Otherwise, things might pop out on screen and just look like odd. So we still tried to color things, and you can see a lot of what we've done. It's still very we used a lot of browns and whatnot, but you definitely want to still paint things, even if it's black and white, to make sure things don't all look the exact same, or like I said, pop out and stand out. So yeah, we did it, and we had some people who were saying we should do it in color because the sets looked so nice with vibrant colors. But
right. Yeah.
we knew this needed to be black and white, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, the vibe, it's completely different.
Exactly. It will be the same.
Yeah.
The next question is, when creating the puppets with the person who helped you, did you guys have any restrictions, or did you and her, did you go for it, just make it as crazy as possible?
Let's see, I'm trying to think. I mean, we had help. So inside the puppets, I don't know how familiar you all are with it. This is probably a better example. You have what's called an armature, which is basically like the skeleton that goes inside the puppet, and this provides all of the range of movement, and it kind of just gives it like a sturdiness to it. So inside this puppet it's actually made out of wire, but it's kind of a skeleton like this. So we just had to coordinate with her to make sure that the puppet head and things would actually be able to be installed onto the armature. So she there's a little hole in the neck that basically this piece will go through. So it allows us to kind of connect the head. It's also helpful if something were to break, you can take that piece off and fix it and then put it back onto the body. So once we kind of figured out the size of the puppet that we needed, she did like a rough sketch of what she kind of envisioned. We kind of signed off on it, and so she just went to work and tried to I wish I grabbed some others, but it took her a little while to figure out how to actually get it's a complicated process to get it to work in terms of doing silicone molds. But once she figured it out, she kind of made this for us. And then this guy, this is actually, yeah, so she made this, and you can see like the mouth has some movement to it, so we were able to animate that. You know, you can move the eyeballs around, so that's how we took a little, we take a needle and stick it in the eye to be able to move it where we needed it to go. So it was great that she gave us that option, because we were able to get more expression out of the puppets.
Yeah. For those last shots, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely. And the good thing with stop motion with a lot of these puppets is, you know, you can always get creative with it. There's really no, in my opinion, there's probably no limit. Well, somebody might disagree, but there seems to be no limitation of what you can really do with them when you're fabricating them. Now, this guy, his mouth is pretty limited. He's got a wire in there, so he can't really do too much. But that was okay for this project. But you know, what a lot of people will do is they'll have replacement faces, and they could have like magnets that'll, you know, one expression will pop off the face, and then you pop it back on, and that's kind of where you have your vowels and things like that. And that's how they execute a lot of the speaking, the lip sync. So if we wanted his face to do, you know, like an Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it kind of melts, you might want to have some replacement faces or something along those lines to go down. But yeah, there's not too many limitations of what you can or what you can't do. But you just got to make sure that you know what you need for the puppet first.
That's
and
so cool,
for this project, you just needed 2 puppets, or did you get more of the of Boy and Creeper?
In the actual story, there's the boy has parents, I guess. It's like a family. And we were like, it was partially practicality. We wanted to keep this thing simple. Obviously, we had no experience in animation. So what attracted us to the story was the simplicity. There was only a couple sets that we needed to pull it off. So it was kind of like a nice practice for us to do. We got rid of the other puppets because we thought, let's just keep it focused. So some people might wonder, you know, what's this boy doing out in the woods on his own?
He was looking for food.
We thought it kind of kept the story, gave it just an extra creepy feel to it, and we didn't feel we needed enough. We debated whether or not we needed to like acknowledge that in the story in some way, but then we thought, let's just keep this. It's a ghost story.
Yeah, sometimes not knowing is better.
Yeah. So
exactly.
There
was some projects they'll have different sizes of a certain puppet. Like you might have. It's like this guy, for example, you might have a larger one if you wanted to have his hand like holding a toe or something along those lines, or a smaller one. We just had these 2 puppets. They're just the same size, and we just worked with that throughout. We did have different size versions of the toe, though, but that was easy to, you know, sort of you know, we just sort of molded the clay and just did different versions of the toe. So, but as far as the puppets go, just those 2 and just that same size.
All right.
Yeah.
And how long does it take to make that set piece there, the house of Boy, and how long did it take for the person that did the how long does that take?
So granted, this was our first time trying to make something like this, so I feel like this took a really long time, like weeks.
I thought it took us about 2 weeks. To
get it where it currently is. The one back here that you can kind of see, that's from our new film that we're making. It's a much bigger piece. We really did that quickly. I mean, I would say, you know, we didn't work on it like all day or anything, but it maybe took 3 days or so to, you know, off and on, just letting paint dry and then adding more elements to it. So, I mean, this is all made out of just cardboard. We found a video online that kind of gave us a little tutorial on how to do that. So this is a test to see if we could build a town in this style. So there's going to be a lot more of these we'll have to build. But yeah, this one I feel like from everything we've learned, making miniatures in tow should help us to be able to make things quicker and better, like for our next project. So yeah, I'd say that took about 3 days.
Yeah.
And then you can see here, Chad actually made this. This is the closet that's in tow, and we actually made it to where the door can open and close, so it has actual hinges that it would put on there. This probably took you a couple days too, or
it
longer?
took a couple days.
Yeah. So you kind of just have to. One important thing with stop motion is, which we didn't do a great job of, is storyboarding, or at least figuring out what each set needs to look like, so you're not building things that are unnecessary. You really don't have to worry about what's actually in the frame. So on that, we wouldn't do. And we would choose different angles to kind of cheat things and make it look like maybe the room was fuller than it actually was. But yeah, so
awesome.
that's pretty much it.
I think the next question we got already. It was the different sizes. So Rodrigo, you can go on with the next.
Yeah, how do you mix live action fog and blowing leaves with stop motion animation in one take?
Yeah, so we again had to just learn. I had to play around. I've done a lot of editing in the past, so I kind of was familiar with chroma key and using green screens. And while we wanted to do as much in camera as we could, so to keep the practical effect focus going, I've always thought like you can just tell a difference when something's physically on camera and when it's not. So we wanted to do everything in camera as much as we could, but we were obviously limited with that. One, we shot our entire film out of this space kind of behind us, so we didn't have. I would have loved to have more room to be able to not have to use green screen for like the backgrounds and things like that. But there were times where we had to do it. So as far as the fog goes, any shot that the boy was not actually being animated in, we had a fog machine that we were running, and actually when the steam's coming out of the pipe, we built a contraption to actually shoot the fog machine through it. For the shot of the moon with the fog, we actually bought a moon that lights up, and we hung it from fishing line, and then we used the actual fog to kind of go through it as if it's the sky. But then we had to composite that image into the roof, basically, to be able to achieve that effect. So we still kept things in camera and practical, but we did have to composite in terms of placing it into the scene where we needed it to. So the only digital fog is the scenes where the boy is actually walking through the woods. We did add some digital fog just to keep the scene atmospheric, because as you know, you can't use a fog machine when you're doing stop motion, or the fog will keep changing. Yeah. So as much as I would have loved to have kept that all practical, we couldn't with the nature of stop motion. So
yeah, and one really cool shot that I really liked in tow was with the leaves blowing, and that's like right after the boy had chopped a toe, then the wind picks up and leaves are blowing everywhere. Sort of this like bad omen of sorts. The way we did that was we shot the boy in front of a blue screen, and we just had that reaction shot of him going backwards, the hair is kind of flowing, and then on the blue screen we cropped in. We took a picture of the set of just what we wanted it to look like behind him. We cropped that in behind him, and then for the leaves, what we did was we just picked up a bunch of crushed up leaves around our neighborhood, and we trickled them in front of a blue screen and re-recorded that, and then we cropped in the leaves into the shot, and I guess Neal edited it in post where it was, they're kind of blowing all over the place, and it's blowing really fast and things like that. So we kind of did a little bit of a double layer there, but it turned out being really effective. I really liked that shot. And that was a fun one to do.
Nice, that's so cool. Yeah. Actually, our next question was how you did the leaves and everything. So we got them covered. How about the steam toe? How did you do that? Did you add something to the toe, or was it all just fog blowing into it?
That was so to do that. We took I'm trying to remember. So there's a shot of the camera going down like a pipe, and you can see steam coming out of holes in the pipe. That thing's just made out of a paper towel roll. So we took a paper towel roll, punctured holes into it, and then we spray painted it to make it look rusted. And then a trick that we realized works really well for creating texture is we took tea leaves. We sprayed glue on the pipe, and we did this on like the walls and everything just to give it like a cool texture, but we just sprinkled tea leaves on it, and it would just give it kind of a gritty look. So we did that to the paper towel roll, and then it actually looked like a pipe. And then we literally just hooked up the fog machine to it, sprayed it, and it actually, to our surprise, popped out of those little holes like we were hoping it would. So there's times where it was like you would hope something would work and cross your fingers, and it did. And you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. We had a lot of those moments making this. But yeah, then for that, Chad had mentioned we made different sized toes. So we had one toe that was probably about this big, made out of clay. The toenail was made out of a milk carton, like the plastic. I was trying to figure out what would look like a nail, and I kind of cut that out, and it looked good enough. A lot of experimentation, but yeah, we would use the big toe anytime we wanted to get like kind of gross detail out of the toe, and we just put it on we might have put it on like a light stand or something, and propped it in front of the pipe, and just actually sprayed it with the fog machine. I think for that, we shot at a high frame rate so that we could slow it down so the fog didn't look like it was coming out too fast. So, yeah, that was how we did that.
It's insane. The level of you guys figuring out on the go how to do stuff it's great, man.
Yes.
So much creativity.
It is. It's so much fun doing all that stuff, and it's really fun seeing like the behind the scenes work of it, because when you see the behind the scenes work, it really just looks like some rinky-dink set that we have. And the reality is, it is a rinky-dink set. But, you know, when you frame it a certain way, it actually looks great. And it's just, that's all part of the magic of, you know, filmmaking and stop motion taking.
Magic,
so, yeah, it's really cool.
And, well, how do you light the scenes? What kind of lights do you look for? I saw this one small light you have there. How do you always light with this, or do you have bigger lights?
Here, I can show you real quick. So what's kind of lighting the set now is this big LED panel light. So we have a few of those, and that's what we started off with, and we use those a lot for the outdoor scenes, and which was fine because we kind of, to replicate like, you know, the moon or sunlight, you know, we wanted kind of just like a big source of light. But once we got to the interior sets, we needed a lot more control over the lights. So I noticed when I looked at like other stop motion films, it seemed like their sets always had these spotlights that they were using. And once we got this, it like totally changed our lighting completely. We were able to like, you can really manipulate it and get the light exactly where you need it. So we could create a lot more shadows, and we would also use tricks where we might like put a mirror in a place so it might bounce light. We kind of just made the set, put some lights up, and then Chad was, so I have a background in cinematography and photography, and Chad kind of stays away from that to a certain extent. So there's a lot of times where
I'm incredibly dumb.
There's a lot of situations where I would get lost tinkering with the lights for like hours, and Chad's just kind of sitting there like waiting for us to get ready to shoot. So I would notice the light just needed to kind of move just ever so slightly. So it was a lot of, you know, we would take branches from trees, put them in front of the lights just to create more hard edges and make it look, you know, interesting. But yeah, these lights really are what you want for stop motion, because you just get so much more control, especially on a miniature set. So
and for that house video we posted not too long ago, you might have noticed we used one of these lights. And that's really cool, and that's great. And that's great for some like really kind of those hard to reach places. And so your lights can be as big as that spotlight, probably definitely bigger, but they can even be as small as this. So it's really cool.
And did you burn those lights? Rodrigo asked the question.
Burning the lights?
Did you guys burn them when you burned the house in the new short film you're doing?
Nothing was actually burning. No, it was with this. So with these lights, I can change the color temperature so it's warmer. So it kind of gave off like an orange hue to it. And honestly, when we were bouncing the light behind it, the fog machine caught that, and it kind of was an unintentional. It looked like the thing was on fire.
Yeah.
They tricked us, man. They tricked
Yeah,
us.
how easily you can trick us, guys.
Yeah.
So again, when we were initially building the thing, you can see that chimney on there. The whole point of the fog machine was just to have smoke come out of the chimney. But then when we saw the smoke coming out the back end, it was a mistake. But we're like, actually, that looks pretty cool. Let's just keep it going. So
Yeah.
that was the result.
It looks so
us-
cool.
Yeah, in that post, us playing "Burning Down the House" by Talking Heads probably added to the confusion.
Yeah, and then I saw
Yeah.
the lights, and then
Right.
burning the house, the new Bedford
Yeah,
house, and I
yeah.
was like, okay, they burned these lights, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like
but, you know,
Rodrigo put that like, how did they burn their lights? How did they burn the house with it? And I was like, what? How did they do that? But now we know.
But
Yeah.
That's too funny.
let's see.
You're next, Pablo, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I think the two big like stop motion animation head scratchers that we were left with after Toe was how did you do the blinking and how did you animate the hair? That's crazy, man. Like we couldn't figure it out.
You want to explain the blinking?
Sure. Yeah, I can explain the blinking. So the blinking for us, the way we did it, there's several ways you can do blinking. One of them, you could do it in CG, like so you can just do it in After Effects and just have them blinking from there. For Toe, what we did was we made two different eyelids. So basically what we would do is we would take a picture of the puppet. We would place half of an eyelid, so it made it look like half his eye was open.
Right.
Take a picture, and then we had another eyelid that was fully closed. We take a picture, then we would put the half eyelid back on, take another picture, and then take that off, take a picture. So that was extremely difficult to do. And you know, a lot of times, like you're trying to put this tiny little eyelid on him, and then you might move his head, and then that's a problem, or the eyelids would just keep falling off.
Right.
But yeah, so that's how we did it, and it worked out for us. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider in our future projects if you want to keep going through that, especially if you have like a big crowd of people. But yeah, so that's how we did the eyelids for Tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's a necessary evil. Like to create the realism, we knew we had to have him blink, but there was always that discussion between me and Chad where like the puppet might be in a really awkward position to get to his eyes, and we're like, does he need to blink? Do you think we get away with him not blinking? We're like, we need him to blink. He hasn't blinked in like 20 seconds. So yeah, sometimes you would just have to do it just to, because I think audiences naturally pick up on it, and they need to see that to make sure the puppet, seems alive. Yeah, that was how we did that. And then as far as the hair, his hair itself, and I'm not sure if Demi actually made it to where if she put something in it to give it a little bit of the ability to move around more. But when I did the shot with the leaves, it was a lot of trial and error. But basically I had to, take a picture, just kind of fluff it just ever so slightly, take another picture, and just kind of create a movement to where it gets really sticking like straight up, basically. Take a picture and then kind of make it go down again. And then when you play it back, it basically created this like wave-like pattern where it looked natural. And it took time. I did it for a long time, and it just wasn't looking right. It just looked like he was getting electrocuted or something. And so again, it's just learning how the natural movement of things. And once I kind of got it down, I could, and there's things you can do in the software where, let's say you get a good pattern going, you can actually replay that exact same series of images, kind of almost loop it. So there's tricks you can do to speed up the animating process where it will just kind of keep playing back the pictures you already took. So,
what's the software that you guys use?
Dragon Frame is the name of it.
Right.
So it's still relatively cheap. I think it's about $300, but it's basically like the industry professional version. So like Leica Studios and any stop motion company like Tim Burton, any of those big productions you see in Hollywood, they use that program. So for $300, it's relatively cheap. But yeah, it comes with, hold this up. So basically, it's called a frame grabber. So it's just software. You know, back in the old days with Willis O'Brien doing King Kong, and Ray Harryhausen, they had no reference other than they would stick little things called gauges on their puppet just to see how much they're moving it. But they had no way of seeing if their animation looked good until they got their film back, basically, which is insane to me. The great thing is me and Chad can literally see it frame by frame, animating if everything is looking okay. So if something's moving around in the background, we can spot that. You know, if we bump the set or do something after hours of shooting, more often than not, you have to start all over. But there were times where you can put an overlay up and actually try to get things back into their, you know, position. So sometimes you can save a shot. But basically, it comes with this controller, and we can just take pictures and go back and forth in the frames and just be able to kind of have control over zero. So, yeah. I had a lot of respect for the old pioneers of stop motion. We didn't have this technology. But yeah.
And at how many frames per second did you shoot though? How 15 or 24?
So the usual is anywhere between 12 to 24. The big studio productions will do 24 just to get the really smooth animation. We were probably anywhere from 12 to 15, I would say. This is probably not standard practice, but I think sometimes we were better than others in terms of getting very small movements and pictures in between. So anytime I thought I could speed up the frame rate, I would do it in post, basically. I would just kind of speed up the series of images. So it was probably running it closer to 24. And then times where I needed to slow it down, it was probably closer to 12 frames. But obviously when you shoot 12, the animation gets a little choppier. So I think I would say around 15 frames a second was the average.
Right. It looks more authentic. I mean, for me,
Exactly.
It's a special look.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when it gets too smooth, you lose the stop motion feel. So I think it's kind of a balance. So
nice. The next question is about sound. How do you? I saw a post of you guys going out to record it early. Did you guys do all the sound like that? And if you could add something about the music, that will also be awesome.
Okay. You want to take that?
Yeah, definitely. So we primarily recorded, I'd say about 95% of the sounds for Toe. Did you say that's already?
Yeah,
keep me honest. Yeah, no, we did the majority of the sound. And the good thing about the apartment complex that we live in is it's extremely old, and as a result, it just makes a lot of really creepy and a lot of weird noises. So, you know, whether it's like radiators hissing, this toilet that makes this unholy sound every time you flush it. We have like a cage elevator. It just all sorts of noises, and the wood floors creak really loud. So we kind of lived in sort of like a sound studio already. So really, we just had to turn on the audio recorder, you know, and hit record and.
Yeah, so we use this. It's called a Zoom. I don't know if you're familiar. It's really popular on independent productions. We just hooked the mic up to that and recorded. But yeah, there was like I know a moment where we were trying to figure out the sound of his bed when he's kind of just moving around in the bed, and we needed it to be subtle but like creaky and springy. And I remember we were trying to think of what would create that sound, and Chad just kind of leaned back in his computer chair, and it was like. It's perfect.
Like, if only we can find the right sound. I mean that in itself was like from a movie. So yeah, we did that. We would go out into the woods if we go back home to Kentucky, and we would shoot there if we wanted some ambient outside noises. And then we had a film composer named Flora Chang who did the score for us, and she just did an absolutely like amazing job. Of just doing this really atmospheric, sort of slow burn music for us.
So that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was amazing when he's like chopping the toe off. So yeah, she got really really innovative with her sound on that, and really explored, and it worked wonders for for the project. So, and especially if you have no dialogue in your film like we did, just having like interesting sounds and just the score in itself is really what is what makes you realize that there's no that there is no dialogue in the movie. So, or it makes you forget that there's no dialogue. So it really served it well.
Yes, and we in the end credits, there's someone who did the voice for Boy, but who did the sounds for Creeper.
So she did. So another girl reached out to us named Cassie Carey, who she's a voice actress, and she wanted to kind of help out with the project. So we knew that it's almost a silent film. There's not much dialogue other than the creeper says, "Where's my toe?" But we were able to get her to send us just different versions of saying "Where's my toe." We kind of explained to her like what we wanted. I know Chad did some tests on the mic to try to get that creepy sound, and then I did some manipulating in post with it, and Final Cut basically just distorted it just to give it that extra, inhuman sound, basically, kind of that creepy hiss. So we had her help with that, and anytime the boy like chewed or gasped or anything, she gave us those sounds. So
she also just sent us just some general monster noises, so just some random noises, and we spliced a few of those as well when the creeper's in the house and there's just a lot of different creaking and noises going on. Just a few of them were sort of very subtle placements, but they're in there as well. So but she was great. She saw us on social media, reached out, and was really passionate about the project from the get-go. And I guess just being an independent filmmaker, that's really who you want. It's just a lot of really passionate people who just love the project for what it is and want to and just want to contribute. So yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah.
What we saw that your movie is currently showcased on YouTube through Alter, and it's also on Amazon Prime, right? So what was the process of organizing the distribution of it?
Yeah, so we basically, so once we finished Toe, we knew the next step was doing film festivals. So we submitted, one of the big triumphs of Toe was we had one film festival in mind that's in Chicago that we really wanted to hit the deadline and see if we could get into that festival. It's called Cineapocalypse. And it plays at this really historic theater here that we go to like all the time. And we've been to this festival, years before. So that was our target goal. And I think to achieve that, I had like 10 days to edit the film to get it into that deadline. And so when we got into that festival, it was like, we were so excited to be a part of that and to be able to know we would get to see this little short film on like a big legit movie screen. So that was really cool. And actually Alter was one of the sponsors for that festival. So that was the first time they got to see the short. And we talked to one of their programmers after. She really liked it and loved stop motion. So we kind of got introduced to them there. And then shortly after we got into another festival in, was it Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, Popcorn Frights.
Popcorn Frights. And Alter also helped sponsor that fest. And so it screened again there. And after that, they reached out saying they wanted to use it on their website, basically. So Alter, they also do distribution for some feature films. There's a recent one called Villains that came out, and that should be on Amazon as well. It's a really good movie. But so they have features that they distribute, and then they also have a website that's all short horror, and it's all they're all uploaded to YouTube. And we were just really impressed with the amount of views that all these shorts were getting. So Alter was also another goal. Making money or anything like that off Toe was not the goal in any way. We just wanted to get as many people to see it as possible. Yeah. So when we were able to get Toe to release it, that was a big win for us because we knew it'd reach a wider audience. Mm-hmm. So Cranked Up Films is another one that also reached out to us. They're kind of the same. They're another distributor that is doing really well. And so they release it on their website. So, and then we put it on Amazon just to kind of reach that target as well. Right. So with Toe, we just wanted to get it out there as much as possible and to build an audience, and then for our next film kind of build off of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, getting your film shown on Amazon, especially if it's a short, you pretty much just submit for their consideration. They do have certain requirements, and you have to provide them certain assets. And I don't know if they have somebody screening the movies or...
It's not as difficult to get it on Amazon, but you might not. I feel like through Amazon, we probably didn't reach as wide of an, even though Amazon's huge, it kind of gets lost in all of the shorts and features that people are watching. So Alter was a much better, and Cranked Up were much better options for our short.
That was cooler because you had somebody approach you and that, and try to, make an offer and essentially tell you that they want to stream it on their platform. So that's always really humbling, and that's cool. But yeah, Amazon Prime, Jeff Bezos didn't approach us or anything like that. We just submitted it. We submitted it to them. They accepted it, and that's cool and humbling in itself. But yeah, that process that was more of our doing. So yeah.
Right.
So the next question is about New Bedford. What new challenges are you encountering in New Bedford, if this is the name of the project or the film? And are you upping the game? We saw also this machine that creates like waves, the motion of the ocean.
Yeah.
What's it gonna be like?
So for our next film, after we did Toe, we kind of set our sights on being more ambitious to the point where actually we're gonna make a feature film next, which is crazy. And I think we're being a little naive in the amount of work that's gonna go into it, but we're having fun with it. I think we have a really cool story that we're still writing, but we're developing, and I think it'll really drive us to see this through. But basically, the film is actually called The Iron Leech, and it's basically based in the mid 1800s on a whaling ship. So New Bedford is kind of it's the place that was a popular whaling port town. And so we're kind of, this house that we build is kind of the setting and the type of like look that we're going to do. It's going to be that kind of Tim Burton Gothic look. But yeah, so we knew we needed to build one of the trickiest things for stop motion is animating water. And there's a lot of people who have different devices and ways that they can try to achieve it. Some people use cellophane and they'll just push it around, but it looks a little, it's cool, but it definitely has more of a, what's the word for it? It doesn't look like natural or real in any way.
Right.
So we kind of, we found this video of Leica when they were making Kubo and Two Strings. They had this like mock-up that they were using to try to experiment with doing water. And so we kind of used that as a reference, but basically we have this set over here. A friend of ours is an engineer, and when we told him about this idea, he does a lot of 3D printing. So he was like, oh, I can make all these little parts for you all and use an Arduino computer, and basically I can program into it. Chad will turn it on. You'll see it. So basically, when you turn it on, he's programmed it to do this wave pattern. So once it all gets set, so like right now it's going to start doing this wave, and we had the option of doing different types of patterns that we need. So let me get a higher perspective. But basically, so we knew we needed this to be able, and we can actually operate this frame by frame with a controller if we want. You probably saw in the video we put a what's this? Another thing I'd experiment with was trying to give it an actual like surface that looked like the ocean. Right. So we took tarp and paint and hair gel and just painted over it and laid that over top of it. And you might have seen that video online that kind of showed what it could look like. And we did some post-production to try to make it look more expansive. But the idea is, and we had a lot of people reach out and we're like, why don't you just do that in Blender or Cinema 4D or just do it digitally? And so we had to kind of explain to people it's stop motion. It was important to us to do it practically. And we can do it. We can control this thing frame by frame, which is crucial. We can, still maintain that stop motion effect. So this was like kind of an experiment that we put a lot of work into. And his name's Tate. What's Tate's last name?
I don't know. He's just Tate.
I wanted to pitch it. Yeah. But yeah, so he was real gung-ho about it. It was like a new experiment for him and kind of impressed us with that piece. So we might still develop it a little more. But yeah, that was kind of the idea is this whole thing is going to pretty much take place on a whaling ship out at sea. So we need different, and we'll probably have to use some like After Effects work to blend the ship into the water and stuff. But we wanted to, for the most part, try to keep it practical if we could. So yeah, and again, we're documenting the whole process, just so people can kind of see what we're experimenting with. But you can see, you know, we're gonna have to actually build a full scale ship to for our and by full scale I mean so our puppets for our next film are gonna be about 10 inches tall, which is still very tall. So we're gonna have to kind of build a ship. We did get this offline, which is like a very detailed miniature of it, which we'll use for like wide shots and things like that to show it out at sea. And we're probably going to composite our puppets and make them really small, and if we need them like full moving around on it. Again, it's all experimentation. We might have to play around with it to get it to look real, but that's kind of been our strategy. Is we just go for it basically and see if it works or what problems we encounter.
And for closer shots, are you gonna like recreate the model but larger, basically?
Yeah. So for closer shots, we'll build our own little replicas of it, which is another reason why we wanted to buy like a miniature. So we'll kind of use it as a template. So when we start to build, you know, a bigger version of that ship, we know exactly how it should look and things of that nature. So yeah, so if we do close-up shots, and we will, we'll definitely have to build part of that ship as well. So
it'll be one of those things when we mentioned earlier. You only have to worry about what's in the frame. So we're gonna definitely use some trickery so that we don't have like a 16-foot ship in our apartment. We're probably gonna build like sections of it and shoot those close-ups, and then we might use some digital effects to help with the background and stuff to make it look fuller. But we talked about 3D printing it. I think that would be way too daunting. So I think we're actually going to have to do some carpenter skills and just build it out of wood. So no more popsicle sticks for this. We're going to have to go a little bit.
Exactly. Our next question was we're gonna ask you guys for hype us up for New Bedford, but you already did it. It looks amazing.
We already hyped.
It's gonna be really cool. There's gonna be a lot of horror elements of it, a lot of adventure elements as well. We'll have like creatures fighting, kind of like in a very old school Ray Harryhausen style. So it'll be a really fun kind of horror adventure out at sea. So. You know,
and for those puppets and the human puppets, are you contacting the same person?
So we actually have so Demi, who made these puppets, she's working full time for K&B Effects. She's got a lot going on with them. So we have like probably 12 puppets for this next film that we need built, and it's a lot for one person to take on. So we know, and we also have like a whale, shark, other creatures and stuff. So there's a lot that needs to happen, and so we're going to try to spread out the workload and find the great thing about today's day and age is on Instagram alone, you can find so many talented people out there who you can commission to help. So we're looking out for people to help. We have this woman named Natasha, and it's called Morsey Moore Studio. We reached out to her, and she's an incredibly talented puppet fabricator. And she has really interesting methods that I don't quite understand. So when we mention replacement faces, we have her building us a sailor puppet right now, and she's sculpted these really detailed faces that pop on and off by magnets. So we can get different facial expressions just by changing the faces. And she knits the clothing. She does everything. It's definitely, take a look at her work online. But she's going to make us the first puppet for our opening scene. We only need one puppet. So the plan is we're going to shoot that scene, make sure everything looks how we want it to look, and then we're going to run a Kickstarter after that scene is completed and try to raise funds to be able to make the rest of the film. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing, guys. Count on us. We want to see more of.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all, right, Rodrigo? Anything
Now
else?
let's ask them for advice for any emerging filmmakers or people that wanna start in stop motion. People that want to get into stop motion.
So my advice would be for people, I know for us, there's a million reasons why you can't like get out and shoot something, but I went to film school, and so I've seen like what value that can offer, but the reality is getting out and just shooting on your own and finding people to help you. You learn so much more when you go out and just try to make something. So, you know, we knew we wanted to make toe. We had no experience doing stop motion. There's so many resources online and books that you can get to teach you how to do it. So there's really no reason why you can't just go out and try to make something. So I would urge everyone, if you have an idea, even if you don't have an idea, even if you just want to get experience like using a camera and lighting things in a cinematic way, just to go out and go for it, not worry about failing or is it not going to be any good. We don't show off all the mistakes that we encounter along the way, but you certainly have to get through all the failures to be able to find success and stuff. So I would just tell people go out and go for it. And if you're interested in stop motion, you know, it's obviously a niche, but it's incredible how many people are online literally giving you tutorials showing you exactly how to make these puppets and stuff. So you can learn it if you seek it out. So I would just tell people get out and make a movie. So
yeah, and I guess building off of that, if you do decide to go out and make a movie and you haven't found your crew yet or your people, your community, my advice, even though it can be really just uncomfortable for some people, is to start a social media account, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram, and start sharing your process. Start posting things that you're building, things like that. That's what we did. We built a pretty a modest but strong following, and as we continued building and just showing off what we were doing with the project, Flora, the girl who did the score for us, reached out and asked if she could do the score for us. Then Cassie reached out to us and asked if she could do the voices for us. And slowly but surely, we didn't even know that this was happening, but before we knew it, we'd assembled a whole crew of just really passionate and talented artists. So yeah, and then also Jonathan, the guy he made our poster art for us. We found him through social media as well. So yeah, my advice is if you go out and you're sort of independent, you don't have like a whole crew yet, just go out, start an account, start posting. You slowly but surely build a following, and then next thing you know, people will be reaching out to you wanting to work with you or wanting you to work for them. So yeah, that's my advice as well. So
yeah, that's amazing to hear. Like Rodrigo and I, it's difficult because we're in separate countries, but we've always wanted to work in, like, since high school, we've been doing movies together. And awesome. Even some of our ideas are animation that we want to.
Yeah, we would like to animate something.
Yeah. That's so cool. Neal and I have known each other since since we were probably like 13 or 14, and we've been making films together in high school. So we have a similar background there and share this similar passion. So yeah, that's awesome.
And I think nowadays we're lucky with the amount of equipment. You don't even need like all these lights that we have. We kind of deem they can help us create the look we want, but you see people doing stop motion and like lights using their iPhone to actually do the video. So I think nowadays we have the luxury of being able to make a pretty high quality film for not much money as opposed to what it was like in the past. So but yeah, in terms of it's still hard to kind of get out there and just take the risk and make it, but it's worth it, I think. So, but yeah.
Well, that's great advice, guys.
Great advice,
and really we've learned a lot with this interview. Like, for stop motion, you think you only have to go practicals to make it look really nice, but it's a perfect combination between the modern tools that we are given and the old advice or the old techniques the pioneers of filmmaking used to do. So it's great how you use this for Toe, and hopefully will inspire more people like us to go into stop motion, to go into animation, because it's amazing. Animation, it's one of the greatest
Yeah, and
in filmmaking.
even stop motion, like it's incredible. Like Rodrigo said, it's great how it's sticking to something so old. Like it's the origin of animation basically, and it's amazing how in this day and age where you can do anything with VFX and everything, you stick to something more like not more pure, but something unique, very unique.
Yeah.
It's so true. You're still using techniques that are over 100 years old in this day and age. You know, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, there's nothing against CG, and I love it. It's like a resource to add a lot of realism and serve as like a garnish to effects. But there is something that just always drawn us, even if like it's an animatronic puppet that looks pretty crude. I still love to just see the magic of that this was built by somebody and it's controlled by like, you know, a remote. It's just always like, it's a very enchanting thing and what I consider like movie magic. So it's great that we've picked a medium where we can really explore that as well and get creative. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, guys. This was incredibly insightful, and we're confident that it will inspire a lot of people. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more about New Bedford and everything. And hopefully we can meet again for a following.
Yeah, I'd love that.
For a second interview.
Thanks, guys.
Second interview.
Thanks for inviting us on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for taking your time.
Anytime.
All right. Have a good day.
Stay healthy, guys.
Take care.
See you guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.